It's Halloween season. Probably not by the time I post this, but just pretend with me. There are some terrifying creatures out there. The Wendigo? I had to Wendigo every time I thought about that thing. But then I started thinking, I have the power to defeat these cryptids. What is Bigfoot? Oh, you got big feet? So do I. Alright, you aren't special, though you are a rarity in the woman's shoe section. So I decided to compile a list of cryptids that I think I could take in a fight, and why. But first, hi, my name's Kenna and welcome back to another episode of me talking. Halloween special. That is why I am currently in my Halloween outfit this year, which is poison ivy. What are you guys dressing up as for Halloween? I always love to hear what people's costumes are. If you're not currently subscribed, you can subscribe to join the Kens. Kens are what I call my subscribers, and they are legally in 40 states considered to be cryptids. All right, let's get into it. There are going to be some rules that I abide to. Firstly, no guns. This is how I know 90% of cryptids in America are fake, because if they did exist, they would be shot. And that's not just a cheeky little joke about American gun violence. This has happened multiple times. Something that is believed to be a cryptid is proved to exist because someone shot it. You have Hogzilla from Alabama. You have this one wolf creature. My favorite is in Loveland, Ohio. There are these things called the frogmen, and it was this urban legend that there was a frog-shaped human-shaped frog, glass half empty, glass half full, depends on what you see, who also had a wand and could do magic. However, an officer who was one of the first witnesses of this cryptid shot it because he said, I don't think anyone else would believe me if I didn't. I mean, I guess it was the 80s, so he couldn't just shoot a photo. So he had to shoot it. And it turned out to be a large iguana without its tail. Anyways, I'm not going to shoot anything because I am sure a lot of these could just be taken down with a Glock. This is not going to be hand-to-hand combat, and I can use things at my disposal. If they can use their magical powers, their shape-shifting, their calls to lure people in, then I can use my tools, which is my big human brain. We're also going to focus on weird ones and ones that I personally like, because there are a lot of cryptids that are just like weird animals that could easily be taken down. Like, look at this guy. He's a fur-bearing trout. A worm on a hook could get this guy. Like, let's be for real. I'm also doing it in order of easiest to hardest to beat. And the last one I know is going to be pretty controversial, so stick around and listen to my reasons. First up is the Dahu. I'm also lumping it with the side hill gouger because these two creatures are basically the same thing. The Dahu is described as a mountain goat-like animal with legs of different sides having differing lengths to walk upright on the steep slopes of its mountain environment. It can only walk around the mountain in one direction. Little topical there. Little soon. So this cryptid is basically a goat that has one pair of legs that is shorter than the others, so it has no balance. So my proposal to beat it is this. Push them. It wouldn't be very hard to defeat a Dahu. In fact, many have. You can defeat a Dahu in two ways. So one requires two people, one to hold a bag and the other to imitate Dahu sounds. The person imitating the Dahu sounds is going to go right up to the Dahu, start making some goat noises, and then when the Dahu tries to turn around, it'll lose its balance and then fall into the bag. The second way is to put black pepper near a stone on the mountain, so when the goat is doing its grazing, it'll smell the black pepper, sneeze, and then hit its head on the stone and lose its balance and roll off the cliff. I do think I've discovered the issue with this video already, which is 90% of the cryptids that are evil are cryptids that I couldn't beat. So I'm just pushing lopsided goats off of cliffs. It's like I'm no better than the back in the barnyard kid. Fresno nightcrawler. Fresno nightcrawlers appear to be relatively short creatures, approximately 1.5 meters, with most of their height being made up by their legs, as they possess an extremely small upper body. They're basically a pair of pants. A sharp kick to the shins could take them down, and they wouldn't be able to get back up. because they have no arms. A brief intermission to explain a common trend within cryptids. Some cryptids are explained away by being extinct animals that are still around, namely dinosaurs. Take for instance the thunderbird, believed to be a prehistoric bird, Teratorn. The megalodon is another example, which I think is crazy because if a dinosaur still existed, there is no way we wouldn't know about it. The amount of food that thing would have to eat, it would take out all of Idaho in one day. That'd be one meal for it. All of this to say, the dodo. Some people believe the dodo is out there, which makes it kind of a pseudo-cryptid. If you don't know about the dodo, it's a species of bird that went extinct in like the 1660s when Dutch settlers found it on an island. It was a bird that had no known predators, and so it didn't know to be afraid. You could go up to these things and just hit them. So within months of their discovery, they were already extinct. That's how easy they were to kill and how fast they were killed. So if the dodo did still exist, obviously I could take it in a fight. Literally anyone could. But would it feel right? No. At the end of the day, we must ask ourselves, are we no better than the Dutch? Wakefield's Loch Ness Monster. Okay, so another brand of cryptids is just Loch Ness Monster ripoffs. The cryptid world is chock full of these things. Every single lake, I think, in America has a Loch Ness Monster in it. This one is a new one. It was announced in February 12th, 2024, making it the most recent cryptid on this list. Now, because it's called Loch Ness Monster, I was expecting it to look like the Loch Ness Monster, you know, like a fearsome, gigantic sea serpent. That's the Wakefield Loch Ness Monster. This guy looks British. Like, you see this creature and you're like, this is probably a British cryptid. A visitor to Thorns Park saw a monster in the form of a half frog, half dog chasing a goose around the park's duck pond. I do really like the park warning them to please be vigilant. And it's this thing, giant rats. So much of cryptozoology is just, what if we took that animal that really exists and make it giant? That'd be pretty spooky, right, guys? And it's like, guys, the universe did that millions of years ago. Giant rats are just giant rats. It is unknown what causes their size. They enjoy stalking and preying at night and are known to make all the rules. Make all the rules? What rules? Are they on legislation? Most politicians these days, giant rats. Am I right, guys? Anyways, who would win? A giant rat or a big block of cheese? The jackalope. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why isn't the jackalope sooner in the list? It's literally a rabbit with horned ears. Well, firstly, the jackalope is so much more than that. Horned rabbits actually do exist, but their horns are cancerous tumors. So they've already been beat. Jackalopes are dangerous. Jackalopes are said to be so dangerous that hunters are advised to wear stovepipes on their legs to keep from being gored. Stores in Douglas sell jackalope milk, but the New York Times questions its authenticity on the grounds that milking a jackalope is known to be fraught with risk. I do love that that's the reason to question its validity. You're telling me a jackalope milked this? There are very specific rules to hunting a jackalope. Firstly, you have to get a permit, and then you can only hunt it on June 31st from the hours of midnight to 2 a.m. I think that's kind of unfair because a jackalope can hunt me all hours of the day. An interesting fact about the jackalope is that it can sing. It's actually a beautiful tenor. When cowboys would sing around the fire the night before a thunderstorm, they reported a mysterious voice chiming in, which is believed to be the jackalope. That's reason enough to hunt this thing. If that thing tries to outsing me, it better watch out the 31st of June between the hours of midnight and 2 a.m. One of the ways to catch a jackalope is to entice it with its favorite drink, which is whiskey. So basically, you can capture a jackalope the same way you can capture an indie film boy, manic pixie dream girling so hard. Drink some whiskey, sing in the rain, and you got yourself a jackalope. New Peppo. This is a cryptid from Japanese folklore. It appears as a blob of flesh with a hint of a face in the folds of fat. The body odor is said to rival that smell of rotting flesh. Other theories claim that the new Peppo is actually decaying flesh. The new Peppo aimlessly wanders deserted streets of villages, towns, and cities, often at night towards the year end, or graveyards or abandoned temples. The new Peppo is passive and unaggressive. There is a rumor that states that those who eat the flesh of new Peppo shall have eternal youth. This is probably the simplest way to get eternal youth, but I do feel like you would probably be made fun of by other immortal beings. Like, vampires are cool. There are these creatures that have like these battle scars on their neck, but the new Peppo, you just have to eat stinky, rotting flesh. The vampires are probably like, ew, you are stinky, musty, crusty, dusty. Probably pretty easy to beat this one since it is so passive and unaggressive and it's just a big blob, but it is so high on the list because it is a blob of rotting flesh. Like this in a graveyard at night, I think half the battle would be getting over your revulsion and fear at this thing. The Takui, not the Haktua. It's a different cryptid that haunts my dreams and most of Midwest America. Another genre of cryptids is just Bigfoot ripoffs. But why I like the Takui is, obviously as you can see, he's a spiffy looking dude. And there's a reason for that. So there were actually 2 local legends in Lakota Nation that were attributed as the Takui. One was this Bigfoot-like creature, and the other was a spirit that donned a top hat and a coat. It seems to be a misunderstanding in translation because in the Lakota language, both of these creatures was just people being like, what the hell is that thing?
Hey Dakuhe, what is that?
Imagine if in English, there's a cryptid that is named, the fuck is that? And that's what Takui is. So there was a misunderstanding in translation, which blended the two together, and now we have a Bigfoot who wears a top hat and a tailcoat. How would I beat him? I think that he would not engage in any forms of brutality. As you can see, he evolved past that. My form of challenging him is to a game of cards. The only risk is if he loses, he's gonna go ape shit. He was also in this wiki for this video game that I thought was funny because there was a note that said, he loved peanut butter. Kelpie. All right, now we're getting into some of the terrifying ones. Kelpie is a cryptid from the rivers and lochs of Scotland and Ireland. In mythology, the Kelpie is described as a strong and powerful horse. The water horse would encourage people to ride on its back, and once its victims fell into its trap, the water horse's skin would become adhesive, and the horse would bear the victim into the river, dragging them to the bottom of the water and devouring them, except the heart or liver. That's terrifying. So how am I beating this water horse that will stick my flesh to its body and drag me underwater? Easy. I'm gonna make it think that I got on it, but instead, I'm gonna stick a boulder on it. It's not getting back up. Black-eyed children. Black-eyed children are typically described as having pale, almost corpse-like skin. Their most distinctive feature is their eyes, which are completely black. These entities are more likely to stalk people who know about black-eyed children. Oh, I did not read that part before doing this video. I don't like that. That's spooky. I said I could defeat them, so I better be ready. They are often reported to approach individuals who are alone, usually at night. It is nighttime right now, and I am alone. Victims often describe feeling an overwhelming urge to help or comply with the children, despite an intense internal warning not to do so. So how would I defeat the black-eyed children? I was actually supposed to change that from the Dahu slide, but I do like that better. Push them.
What would you do if there was a child right in front of you?
I've never once been compelled to help a child. The slide rock bolter. This one is so absurd. It is a whale on a mountain, and when it spots a group of tourists, it slides down the mountain and gobbles them up. How could you possibly go up against a creature this big? I don't have to, because he's actually already been defeated. So a sheriff of the town decided to take matters into his own hands, and he planted a dummy of a tourist that was actually full of dynamite. And so when the slide rock bolter slid his way down the rock and gobbled this dummy up, he exploded, and he's never been seen since. However, the explosion did result in destroying half of the town, so I don't know if it can be counted as a true victory. Yowie. Here we have another Bigfoot-like creature. The Yowie is considered to be the Australian Bigfoot. Yowie? That's what it's gonna be saying after I'm done with it. Yowie! So I'm gonna be honest, I mostly put this one on here to make that pun. I don't think I could defeat the Yowie. It's an Australian Bigfoot. I can't even defeat an Australian spider. An Australian pigeon? That would take me out. Florida. For some reason, the cryptids site that I was on listed Florida, which makes perfect logical sense to me. How would I defeat it? I'm gay. And finally, the squonk. So the squonk is one of my favorite cryptids ever. It is basically just a pig that is so ugly. They are so saddened and ashamed by their appearance that they cry. And if you try to capture one, it will dissolve into a puddle of tears. The main issue with defeating the squonk is morality, not of power and strength. The only strength in this one is the strength of kindness. And that is the final one. Let me know what you think. If you think you could defeat these cryptids, if there are any cryptids that you could defeat that I did not list. If you've made it this far and you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to join the Kens. Thank you guys for watching. I know this one is sort of different from my usual videos. I really like cryptids and I thought it could be like a fun Halloween special. But I will be back next month with a usual video. Until then, have a nice Halloween and bye.